So today we'll be doing introduction to parallel computing. Why do we need parallel programming? So the reason is basically that nowadays all computers are essentially parallel. This means that within every operating computer there always exist various activities which one way or another run in parallel at the same time. Now, parallel activities may arise and come to an end independently of each other, or they may be created purposely to involve simultaneous performance of various operations whose interplay will eventually lead to the desired result. Informally, the parallelism is the existence of parallel activities within a computer and their use in achieving a common goal. The parallelism is found on all levels of a modern computer's architecture. First, parallelism is present deep in the processor microarchitecture. So yes, parallelism is there in deep of each processor's microarchitecture. Then in the past, processors ran programs by repeating the so-called instruction cycle, which included a sequence of steps which were reading and decoding an instruction, finding data needed to process the instruction, and processing the instruction and writing out the result. So the second step, which was finding data needed to process the instruction, introduced lengthy delays which were due to the arriving data. Much of research focused on designs that reduce these delays, and so that research helped in increasing the effective execution speed of programs. Then second, any commercial computer, tablet or smartphone contains a processor with multiple cores, each of which is capable of running its own instruction stream. So any device you use these days, it has a processor which has multiple cores, which each of which is capable of running its own instruction stream. Now, if the streams are designed so that the cores collaborate in running an application, the application is run in parallel and may be considered sped up. So if there are the streams which are designed so that the cores can collaborate in running that application, that particular application can be said that it has an increase in speed now since it is running in parallel. Third, many servers contain several multi-core processors. Such a server is capable of running a service in parallel and also several services in parallel. So any server which has many multi-core processors, that can be said that that server is capable of running a service in parallel and many services in parallel as well. And finally, even consumer level computers contain graphic processors capable of running hundreds or even thousands of threads in parallel. Processors capable of coping with such a large parallelism are necessary to support graphic animation. So yes, the processors which are capable of coping with such large parallelism, they are necessary to support graphic animation. Now, there are many reasons for making modern computers parallel. First, it is not possible to increase processor and memory frequencies indefinitely. So the processor and memory frequencies cannot be increased indefinitely, and at least not with the current technology that we are using, which is silicon based. Therefore, to increase computational power of computers, new architectural and organizational concepts are needed. And second, power consumption rises with processor frequency while the energy efficiency decreases. So whenever the power consumption is rising, whenever the processor frequency is rising, the power consumption rises and energy efficiency decreases. However, if the computation is performed in parallel at lower processor speed, so the computation is performed in parallel but the processor speed is low, the undesirable implications of frequency increase can be avoided. Then finally, parallelism has become a part of any computer, and this is likely to remain unchanged due to simple inertia. And parallelism can be done and it sells well, obviously. Then there are three prevailing types of parallelism. During the last decades, many different parallel computing systems appeared on the market. First, they have been sold as supercomputers dedicated to solving specific scientific problems. Perhaps the most known are the computers made by Cray and Connection Machine Corporation. This was the computer. But as mentioned above, the parallelism has spread all the way down to the consumer market and all kinds of handheld services. Various parallel solutions gradually evolved into modern parallel systems that exhibit at least one of the three prevailing types of parallelism. So, the three prevailing types of parallelism are shared memory system, distributed systems, and graphic processor units. So, the shared memory system is the system with multiple processing units attached to the single memory. Then distributed systems are the systems consisting of many computer units, each with its own processing unit and its own physical memory, that are connected with fast interconnection networks. Then third is the graphic processor units, used as co-processors for solving general purpose numerically intensive problems. So the three prevailing types of parallelism are shared memory, distributed, and graphic processor. So just remember that. Then what is the time consuming computations can be like, okay, so time consuming computations can be sped up. The n-body problem, classical n-body problem, is the problem of predicting the individual motions of a group of objects that interact with each other by gravitation. So the actual problem statement is: given the position and momentum of each member of a group of bodies at an initial instant, compute their positions and velocities for all future instances. While the classical n-body problem was motivated by the desire to understand the motions of the sun, moon, planets, and the visible stars, it is nowadays used to comprehend the dynamic of globular cluster star systems. Given instance of the n-body problem is described as a particular system of 6 n differential equations that for each of n bodies define its location x of t, y of t, z of t, and the momentum mvx, mvy, mvz at an instant t. The solution of this system is the sort of for description of the evolution of the n-body system at hand. Thus, the question of solvability of a particular classical n-body problem boils down to the question of solvability of the associated system of differential equations that are finally transformed into a system of linear equations. So today we know that if n is equal to 2, the classical n-body problem always has analytical solution, simply because the associated system of equations has an analytic solution. If n is greater than 2, analytic solutions exist just for certain initial configurations of n bodies. In general, however, n-body problems cannot be solved analytically. Then it follows that in general the n-body problem must be solved numerically using appropriate numerical methods for solving systems of differential equations. Can we always succeed in this? The numerical methods numerically integrate the differential equations of motion. So the numerical methods which are there actually integrate the differential equations of motion. To obtain the solution, such methods require time which grows proportionally to n square. We say that the methods have time complexity of the order of n square. At first sight, it seems to be rather promising. However, there is a large hidden factor in this big O of n square. Because of this factor, only the instances of the n-body problem with small values of n can be solved using the numerical methods. So only the problems with small values of n can be solved using these numerical methods. To extend solvability to larger values of n, methods with smaller time complexity must be found. One such is the Barnes-Hut method with time complexity of big O of n log n. But again, only the instances with limited values of n can be solved. There is a range. So for much larger values of n, numerical methods become prohibitively time consuming. So they consume a lot of time. The parallel program was able to simulate evolution of n-body systems consisting of n is equal to 6,40,000 to n of 1 million bodies, which is 10 lakhs. So it turned out that for such systems, the optimal number of processing units was 64. So we need 64 processing units running in parallel to solve this n-body problem. Then, like overview of parallel systems, history of parallel systems and programming, etc., etc. If pi is an arbitrary computational problem which is to be solved by a computer, usually our first objective is to design an algorithm for solving pi. Clearly, the class of all algorithms is infinite, but we can partition it into two subclasses: the class of all sequential algorithms and the class of all parallel algorithms. While a sequential algorithm performs one operation in each step, parallel algorithm may perform multiple operations in a single step. So our objective is to design a parallel algorithm for pi. Let P be an arbitrary parallel algorithm. We say that there is parallelism in P. The parallelism in P can be exploited by various kind of parallel computers. For instance, multiple operations of P may be executed simultaneously by multiple processing units of a parallel computer C1, or perhaps they may be executed by multiple pipeline functional units of a single processor computer C2. So there are two computers, parallel computer C1 and single processor computer C2. So both can use it according to their own need. After all, P can always be sequentially executed on a single processor computer C3 simply by executing P's potentially parallel operations one by one in succession. Let C of P be a parallel computer of the kind C which contains P processing units. So it is a parallel computer with P processing units. Then naturally we expect the performance of P on C of P to depend on both what kind of computer it is and how many processing units are there. So it depends on both C and P. We must therefore clearly distinguish between the potential parallelism in P on the one side and the actual capability of C of P to execute in parallel multiple operations of P on the other side. So the performance of the algorithm P on a parallel computer C of P depends on its capability to exploit P's potential parallelism. So it does not, the algorithm is P, it depends totally on the computer C, like how can it exploit the parallelism of P. Then the performance might mean that the time required to execute P, this is called parallel execution time, which will be denoted by, so alternatively we might choose the performance to mean how many times in the parallel execution of P on C faster than the sequential execution of P. This is called the speed up of P on C. So the speed up is equal to T of sequential upon T of parallel. So T sequential, T parallel. Then we can also see that so T of parallel is the parallel time execution, and T of sequential is sequential time execution. Then we can see that parallel execution of P on C is S times faster than sequential execution of P. Next, we might be interested in how much time of the speed up S is on average due to each of the processing units. But differently, the term performance might be understood as the average contribution of each of the P processing units of C to the speed up. This is called the efficiency. So efficiency can be calculated by S upon P, small p, not the capital one, because the capital one is the algorithm, small p means number of processors in the computer C. So efficiency is S upon P. Since T parallel is less than T sequential less than P, so T parallel it follows that speed up is bounded above by efficiency is bounded above by, so basically efficiency is less than or equal to 1, obviously. This means that for any computer and a number of processors, the parallel execution of P on C can be at most P times faster than the execution of P on a single processor. And the efficiency of the parallel execution of P on C 1 by pth can be at most 1. So the efficiency can be at most 1. Of course, when it is less than or equal to 1, the highest possible efficiency is 1. This is when each processing unit is continually engaged in the execution of P, thus contributing to its speed up. From the above definitions, we see that both speed up and efficiency depend on T parallel, the parallel execution time of P. This raises new questions. How do we determine T parallel? How does T parallel depend on C? Which kind of properties of C must we take into account in order to determine T parallel? These are important general questions about parallel computation which must be answered prior to embarking a practical design and analysis of parallel algorithms. The way to answer these questions is to appropriately model parallel computation. So I think these questions will be answered for you in the next video. Thank you for watching. Thanks a lot.